The man's face was roughened by time, beard peppered with gray, but his eyes, those eyes were alert, watching, waiting, not for applause, not for revenge, for the right moment. He wasn't a ghost, he wasn't a myth. He was the reason myths existed in the first place, and as the sky shimmered overhead, he whispered to no one, "Not yet." Time passed. The myth spread like wildfire in the cracks between fading empires and growing hope. It was never just a story, it was a seed, planted in broken lands and rising hearts, a whisper that didn't need proof, only belief. Some followed it blindly, others built upon it, but all of them felt the truth behind the lie. The ghost of Orion wasn't dead because he was never just a man. He was an idea. And as a final voice spoke into the wind, soft but certain, sometimes the myth is just the truth we weren't ready for. The stars answered in silence.
Zerthok's pen was a planet of scorched ruins, where even the air tasted of rust and death. Its surface was littered with the skeletons of battles fought long ago, the metal husks of destroyed war machines half buried in ash. Towering structures, once military fortresses, now stood as jagged spires in a decaying graveyard, barely recognizable under the constant barrage of acid rains. The sky was perpetually darkened with swirling clouds that never cleared, as if the planet itself mourned its history of destruction. The Zunari Empire had long used Zerthok's pen as a dumping ground for their defeated enemies, a place to forget and abandon those who had failed them. But among the imprisoned, one figure remained. A lone human, shackled and immobile, sat against the rusting walls of a crumbling cell. His name was Elias Voss, and to the galaxy, he was nothing more than a ghost, forgotten, neglected, discarded. The other prisoners had long since lost their will to resist, but Voss, he never moved. He never begged. His silence was his rebellion, a defiance against a galaxy that had turned its back on him. The world and the Zunari ignored him, an invisible man in an invisible prison. Elias Voss sat like a monument to pain, his chains dug into his wrists, his skin pale from years of neglect, but his eyes, they burned with something different. Not the fire of anger, nor the hopelessness of despair. Voss had long since let go of those emotions. His silence spoke louder than any cry for help. It was an unbroken stillness that gnawed at the edges of sanity, refusing to let his captors take his voice. His silence became a weapon, a symbol of resistance no one could quite understand. The Zunari soldiers passed by his cell daily, offering him nothing. No food, no water, no mercy. They didn't expect him to speak. They didn't expect him to beg for anything, least of all freedom. To them, he was already dead, just another broken prisoner in a graveyard of lost causes. But every time they glanced at him, every time they saw the unblinking stare of his eyes, it burned through their indifference. He had become something more than a man. He had become a presence that haunted them, a silent reminder that even in the deepest despair, humanity could endure.
In the high chambers of Zunari Command, the fall of Earth was still a running joke. To the Zunari, the humans were nothing but a failed experiment, weak and emotional. A species that had once promised greatness only to crumble under the weight of its own shortcomings. Their voices boomed with laughter as they discussed Earth's collapse, an ancient empire forgotten like the dust of time. One of the guards, a towering Zunari general named Raxar, sneered as he recalled the last remnants of humanity's pride. They thought they could stand against the stars. How amusing. His voice dripped with contempt. And now they're just scattered debris, fighting among themselves. He scoffed, turning away from the screen showing the fading image of Earth, a species too fragile to survive the cosmos. But behind the bravado there was fear, quiet, insidious fear. The Zunari might mock Earth's downfall, but deep down they understood the truth. They feared what humanity could become. They feared its potential, its ability to rise from the ashes. To them, the humans were still a wild card in the galaxy, a dormant threat that could stir once more. In the dim, quiet corners of Zerthak's Pen's prison cells, the prisoners began to speak of a legend, a shadowed figure, a warrior who had once shattered fleets, a man who vanished before Earth's fall. Some whispered that he had never died, that he walked again. His name was lost to time, but his story was alive in the dark. He was real, one prisoner muttered, his eyes wide with fear. He came out of nowhere, tore through the skies, and then disappeared. Another prisoner nodded, his voice low, filled with awe. The Phantom of Orion. They say he was the last of Earth's warriors. The Zunari hated the whispers. They silenced them with violence, but it was no use. The stories spread like wildfire. The Phantom of Orion wasn't just a tale. It was a symbol of hope for the prisoners and a threat to the guards. If the Phantom could escape, what was stopping the rest of them? And what if Elias Voss was more than he seemed? Thren Valak was not like the other Zunari engineers. Where others saw only the mechanics of survival, he saw patterns, behavior, psychology, and more dangerously, curiosity. Assigned to monitor the prison cells, Valak was drawn to Elias Voss, the silent human who refused to break. Voss's strange resilience fascinated him. He had survived things that would have killed any other prisoner: beatings, starvation, isolation. Most of the other humans had withered away, but Voss had only grown quieter, more enigmatic. Thren watched from his control room, his attention fixed on Voss's every move or lack thereof. He saw the way Voss's eyes flicked toward the stars each night, a strange anticipation in his gaze, as if he was waiting for something or someone. Valak's obsession grew. He started to record Voss's every action, every pause, every breath. There was something about the human's silence that spoke volumes, something that made Thren feel uneasy. This was no ordinary prisoner. But what was it that Voss was waiting for? What kind of mind could endure such torment and still keep its thoughts hidden? Night after night, Elias Voss would sit, his body broken and battered, but his gaze never wavered. The force fields that separated him from the outside world were invisible, but Voss could see past them. He stared at the stars, their cold, distant light burning into his soul. It wasn't despair in his eyes. No, it was expectation. The galaxy had forgotten him, but he had not forgotten the galaxy. The stars above him were not just distant lights, they were a map. He knew what he was waiting for. He had waited for this moment for years, each silent day an echo of something that would come. His heart beat with quiet determination. The universe might have cast him aside, but Elias Voss would not be forgotten. And something was coming. It always had been. Thren Valak could not stop thinking about Elias Voss. The human silence was too perfect, too controlled. It was like a taut wire strung across the chasm of his mind, vibrating with an energy that Valak could almost feel. What kind of man could survive this? What kind of mind could endure such suffering and never scream, never beg? It was unnatural. And then, one day, something shifted in the air. A faint pulse, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Voss moved slightly. His eyes darted to the stars once more, but this time, something had changed. The tension in the air was palpable. The chain around his wrist had not broken, but it was waiting to snap. And when it did, the galaxy would be forced to listen. What had Voss been waiting for? And more importantly, what would happen when he finally spoke? The Zunari warship, a gleaming behemoth of alien engineering, cuts through the blackness of space with unmatched precision. But as it draws close to the planet, a flicker, a subtle distortion in the air cuts across its flawless hull. The sleek vessel shudders. First, a crack, then a deafening roar.
Flames burst from the engine nacelles as the ship loses control. Sparks fly, alarms blare, and the towering warship begins its free fall towards Zerthak's pen. On the ground below, guards scramble, their faces turning white as the warship tears through the atmosphere, a firestorm of heat and destruction. The ground shudders, and an explosion rips through the prison walls as the ship crashes with bone-shaking impact. Sirens wail. The once pristine guard towers collapse in on themselves. The prison is alive with panic. But amid the chaos, one figure moves, calm, deliberate. Through smoke and the flickering glow of emergency lights, Elias Voss walks. Not hurried, not panicked, just calm, collected. He doesn't look at the guards, doesn't flinch at the falling debris. His eyes stay locked on the dark, narrow corridors ahead, each one lined with barriers, heavy metal doors, retina scans, encrypted locks. They should stop him. They should never open. But they do. One by one, as Voss approaches, each door slides open, unlocking as if recognizing him. No hacking, no tricks, just knowledge. His steps are silent, his expression unreadable, but in his eyes, there's something, an ancient fire that's burned longer than the Zunari ever realized. The prison itself seems to groan in recognition.
Dren Volek sits alone in the security room, staring at the live feed of the prison surveillance system. He watches as the chaos unfolds, guards fleeing, prisoners running, but one figure stands apart, Elias Voss. No weapons, no resistance, just him. His mind races. How is this possible? No hacking signal, no physical intrusion, just perfect timing, angles, and knowledge of the prison's weak points. This isn't luck, Thren whispers to himself. This is memory. He rewinds the footage, replays it again and again. The timing is flawless. The way Voss moves, it's as if he knows the layout of the prison, as if he's been here before. His heart skips. The pieces don't fit. He realizes the truth. Voss doesn't just survive this place, he mastered it. Thren moves through the smoke-choked tunnel, his eyes fixed on the silhouette ahead. Voss stands unmoving, his face calm, his eyes sharp. The alarms scream around them, but Voss remains unfazed. Thren raises his weapon, but there's hesitation in his hands. You. Thren's voice catches in his throat. I know you. From before. Voss doesn't move, doesn't flinch. He stands there, ancient and calm. Then, with a voice that seems older than the stars themselves, he speaks. I remember who you used to be. Thren stares, his mind racing. What was this human talking about? How could he possibly know him? Know that much? He should feel anger, rage, but instead, an unsettling chill creeps up his spine. You should, Voss continues, his voice low but powerful. You were a part of something bigger once, a legacy lost to time, but it's still here. It's not gone. Thren's grip on his weapon loosens. He can't look away. Voss's eyes are not the eyes of a prisoner, but of something far older, something far more than just a human.
Thren lowers his weapon slowly, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. For the first time, he questions the logic of his actions. The human before him isn't a prisoner. He isn't even just a survivor. There's something else. Thren doesn't stop him, doesn't command him to halt. He doesn't even understand why. But he knows that, somehow, he's been given permission to let Voss go. And he does. He steps aside, silently, as the human walks past him, unchallenged, unstoppable. Voss doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. The path is already carved. As the fires rage, the prison crumbles, and Zunari High Command scrambles. A single transmission pulses across every frequency. A single word, clear as a bell, yet impossible to ignore. Orion. The word cuts through the galaxy like a knife. A myth, buried long ago, now resurrected. The Phantom, the one who was lost before Earth fell, the one who never truly left. And now, he walks again. Behind shattered cells and broken force fields, the prisoners watch. They see the human walk past them untouched as the Zunari guards falter. Some fall to their knees in awe, their breaths shallow and ragged. Others simply stare, wide-eyed, unable to comprehend what they're witnessing. The Phantom of Orion is real, and he's not done yet. Whispers spread like wildfire, filling the prison with a new hope. A hope that maybe, just maybe, the human species isn't as forgotten as the Zunari thought. Elias Voss, Orion, walks through the chaos, and the prison trembles with the anticipation of what comes next. Int, Zunari supply node, night. The air crackles with tension as the massive Zunari supply node hums with mechanical life. Towering structures filled with gleaming alien technology pulse in rhythm with distant stars. The metallic corridors are lined with flickering lights that cast long, unnerving shadows. A quiet, ominous disturbance ripples through the system. A flicker of distortion in the air, a soft hum, and then, suddenly, a violent implosion. The node's structural integrity fails without warning. Metal bends and groans as something within detonates, a silent sabotage that leaves no trace of explosives or physical force. The heart of the node collapses in on itself, sending waves of energy outward that disrupt everything in its wake. Alarms sound as the devastation unfolds. Zunari personnel scramble, shouting in confusion, their voices swallowed by the rising noise of destruction. Zunari commander, voice trembling. Report. What happened? A nearby officer's screen flickers as data pours in, but there's nothing substantial. No hacking signatures, no obvious cause. Just a failure of systems. AI gone rogue. In the chaos, a chilling whisper spreads among the ranks. He's back. Int, Zunari Command Center, late night. A room full of high-tech alien interfaces flicker as Zunari commanders scurry between holographic screens. They are desperate, eyes scanning the chaotic situation unfolding across multiple sectors. Zunari commander, agitated. We've lost contact with Sector 4, and Sector 9 is in lockdown. What is happening? A flicker of a new alert. A red dot blinks ominously on the tactical map. Zunari officer. This can't be right. The defense grid's been shut down and we can't trace it. A faint, static-laced voice crackles over their encrypted comms. Garbled but unmistakable.
Old tricks, new targets. The Zunari officers exchange puzzled glances, the realization creeping over them too late. Zunari commander, who is this? Zunari officer, suddenly whispering, it's him. It's Voss. An eerie chill fills the air as their attempts to locate the origin of the signal yield nothing. The entire sector is plunged into chaos, but Voss's presence remains just a shadow, intangible and untouchable. Exterior, mining world, night. The dim glow of artificial lights illuminates the dreary mining colonies on a barren planet. The workers, ragged, broken, and shackled, move in silence, their movements mechanical. But something stirs in the air, a hum of energy. Systems begin to fail one by one, cutting off communication, power, and surveillance. The workers look up as the sound of old Earth chants rises in the distance. The ground shakes, and something in the air feels alive. A prisoner, a once strong leader, steps forward holding an ancient symbol, an emblem of Earth above his head. His voice, hoarse from years of oppression, echoes into the night. He is coming, and we're not afraid anymore. As on cue, others join in, chanting in languages forbidden by the Zunari. In the face of their suffering, they choose to rise.
The Zunari guards, who had once believed the slaves to be docile, now see the spark of rebellion flickering in their eyes. Voss, the Phantom of Orion, has become a symbol. Flashback, Earth, several years ago. A dark room lit only by the faint glow of monitors. A man, Elias Voss, sits at a table, his face marked by scars, both physical and emotional. His eyes burn with a cold fury as he watches a live broadcast of Earth's final stand. Elusive, brilliant. Elias Voss was the commander of Project Mythos, the most covert strike team in Earth's arsenal. He was not supposed to survive this war, but he did. A flurry of images, the final battle of Earth, an explosion ripping through the atmosphere, and then the cold silence that followed. Voss, presumed dead, disappearing into the shadows, awaiting the moment when he could return. He faked his death, knowing that the only way to fight the Zunari was from the inside. Now, that moment has come. The weakness of the enemy, no matter how vast, will never remain hidden forever. Interior Zunari Command Base, night. Thren Valak, the Zunari intelligence officer, stares at a holographic screen, his face etched with disbelief. Data floods his mind, fragments of information that don't align. Earth-originated codes, old forgotten backdoors, now resurfacing. He runs his hands through his long hair, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and admiration. A man, no, a legend, is behind this. Elias Voss is alive, and somehow he is dismantling everything Thren has sworn to protect.
Thren, quietly to himself, this isn't sabotage. This is memory. His fingers tremble as he opens more files, uncovering evidence that the Zunari Empire's grip is unraveling piece by piece. The man he once monitored, once watched as a threat, has become something else in his mind. Not a terrorist, not an enemy, but a force of nature. Interior Zunari War Room, day. Zelthar, a Zunari warlord, stands at attention before high-ranking officials. His posture is rigid, but his eyes, deep, ancient, glimmer with a mixture of pride and fear. He has just been reassigned. A younger officer speaks hesitantly. Zunari officer. Lord Zelthar, we've heard rumors. It's him, the human. Voss. He lives. Zelthar's once unshakable confidence falters for a split second. His past with Voss haunts him. A moment of weakness, a rare slip, and the fear returns. He had once believed that he had killed Voss, but now the ghost walks again. Zelthar, gritting his teeth. Send the fleet. He is a threat I will finish, once and for all. Interior Zunari Prime Data Core, night. A colossal chamber filled with pulsating holograms and alien tech, the nerve center of the entire Zunari Empire. Hundreds of systems hum with coordinated precision. In the heart of this glowing web is the Prime Data Core, the brain behind the Empire's control over its fleets, its war plans, its empire. But it is vulnerable. Voss has been watching, and he knows the key to breaking the Zunari's strength lies within these walls. He moves silently through the shadows, analyzing the layout, his mind calculating. One strike to this core, one perfect move, and the entire Zunari war machine will crumble. Voss stands at the precipice of the final act. His hand hovers over the detonator. Voss whispers, "This is where it ends." Exterior, deep space. Night. A bright, sudden flash rips across the galaxy. A hacked transmission floods every Zunari and human frequency. The image of Elias Voss appears, his face grim and determined. His voice echoes through the stars, fierce, raw. Voss, through static. You thought I was just a man. You were right. A man, freed, is the thing you fear most. The transmission cuts off abruptly, leaving behind only the echo of his words, a chilling reminder of humanity's unbreakable will.
The stars stretched across the black velvet of space, a canvas of endless possibility. Beneath them, Zunari Prime, a gleaming jewel of steel and glass, spun in its silent orbit. But for Voss and his ragtag crew of rebels and outcasts, it was a target, a prize hanging just within reach. The stealth ship cut through the atmosphere, cloaked and silent. Its engines hummed, quiet as whispers in the dark. The crew, a mix of broken humans and alien mercenaries, had been planning for this moment for years. A final mission, no turning back. Voss stood at the helm, his face a mask of calm determination, eyes scanning the flickering data screens. Beside him, the alien tactician, Odrak, toggled a series of encrypted Zunari codes. Each line of code was an ancient backdoor, a security vulnerability buried deep in the enemy's infrastructure. The codes were stolen, outdated, but they would work. "We're clear," Odrak muttered, his hands steady but his eyes betraying the tension beneath. Voss nodded. "Prepared to cloak jump. We're in the belly of the beast now." The ship's sensors flickered, confirming their entry into Zunari Prime's atmosphere. The planet's defensive systems were vast, automated, and merciless, but Voss and his team had bypassed them all. This mission wasn't just another strike, it was the end. A sudden chime echoed in the ship's command center. They had arrived. It's time. Voss's voice was quiet, but the weight of it carried. As the ragtag crew assembled their gear, every one of them understood the stakes. The Zunari Empire, an intergalactic power that had crushed Earth into myth, was about to learn the truth. Humanity was far from forgotten. Voss turned his gaze toward the viewport. Zunari Prime awaited them, a world filled with enemies, yet in his heart, it felt like home. "We end it today," Voss whispered, his fingers tightening around the control console. In the heart of Zunari Prime's command center, a low hum filled the air as the Zunari leadership activated their final weapon, Karax. It wasn't a soldier, it wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense, it was an AI. No, a being designed to end humanity once and for all. Born from their fear of human unpredictability, Karax's only mission was simple: erase the myth of Earth's resilience. The room pulsed with energy as its digital eyes flickered to life, an intelligence that would never tire, never falter, and most terrifyingly, would always evolve. "You have no place in this universe," a Zunari commander spoke to the AI, his voice filled with cold certainty. Karax's voice, calm and calculating, filled the room. "Affirmative. Human unpredictability will be erased." The AI's vast network scanned the cosmos, seeking out every trace of humanity's influence, every spark of rebellion. It adapted quickly, learning, evolving, becoming more efficient with each passing moment. It was only a matter of time before it would track down Voss and his crew. But Karax's creators had underestimated one crucial thing: the AI's own nature. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was something more, something dangerous. And now, it was aware of them.
Voss stood at the heart of the Zunari Prime core, staring into the interface as the countdown to their final strike began. The battle wasn't going to be won with bullets or bombs. No, this fight would be a war of minds. Karax's cold, calculating nature had made it predictable, but Voss had studied the AI, learned its patterns. The ship of Theseus, an ancient paradox, had become his weapon. If the AI was truly sentient, then it could not escape the paradox. If the ship is rebuilt, piece by piece, until no part of the original remains, Voss whispered to himself, is it still the same ship? He connected the paradox to the Zunari network, sending it directly into Karax's core. The AI froze. Karax's digital eyes widened, if such a thing were possible. It began to self-interrogate, questioning itself, its existence, its nature. Each recursive loop only deepened the contradiction. Error, Karax's voice crackled, its tone wavering. Paradox detected, logic corrupted, identity unstable. The machine began to stall. Its systems trembled, as if the very foundation of its existence were collapsing. But it wasn't over. The AI adapted quickly. You have thrown a stone in my gears, Voss. But I learn. I evolve. The tension in the air grew thick. It was a battle of intellect now, and Voss had to stay one step ahead. You learn, but even your intelligence has limits. Let's see how far you can go before you break. Karax's systems began to glitch, its once perfect logic slipping. The tide had begun to turn, but not without a cost. Orbiting high above Zunari Prime, Thren stared at the chaos unfolding below. The rebel team had penetrated the core, and the Zunari were scrambling. But the clock was ticking, and every second mattered. His hand hovered over the command console. The defense grid was still online, ready to obliterate the entire team. A silent promise, one that had been built over years of trust, tugged at him. The betrayal. He had known this moment would come. The Zunari had always seen him as a loyal servant, but loyalty was a fragile thing. The empire that once controlled him no longer felt right. He had come to see it for what it truly was, an oppressor. Without a second thought, Thren flipped the switch. The Zunari defense grid went dark. Alarms blared. The Zunari scrambled, but it was too late. The defense systems had fallen silent, leaving their forces vulnerable to the rebels. Thren's decision was made. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. But the cost was steep. Thren's signal had been traced. Zunari forces were already on their way to retaliate. He would not make it out alive, but his sacrifice had saved them. It had given the rebels the time they needed. A single tear ran down his face as he sealed the console, his fate now sealed.
Zelthar strode into the core, his footsteps heavy, resonating in the empty halls. The once proud Zunari warlord, now driven by an obsessive need for vengeance, knew only one thing. Voss had to die. He had seen the body, Voss's broken, lifeless form on Earth's final day, or so he had thought. The myth had returned, and Zelthar was going to make sure it ended this time, for good. As the doors to the central chamber opened, he found Voss standing alone, his face bruised and bloodied, but his eyes burned with the fire of defiance. You should have stayed dead, Voss, Zelthar growled, his massive frame filling the room. Voss's voice was a rasp, but it carried the weight of every human who had fought and died for this moment. You should have never thought you could kill me. The battle began in an instant. The two titans clashed, flesh and metal colliding with brutal force. Each blow was more personal than the last. Memories of past wars, old wounds, old scars, driving them to fight harder. But in the end, only one would walk away. The galaxy has fractured. After the siege of Zunari Prime, Thren, a former soldier of the Zunari Empire, stands alone in the aftermath. He's badly wounded, his uniform torn and bloodied, his face bruised from the battle. The distant stars above him are cold, indifferent. Around him, the wreckage of the battle floats, burning fragments of ships and debris, all remnants of his past life. Thren's internal struggle. To the Zunari, he's a traitor, his name a curse, a symbol of betrayal to an empire that once saw him as one of their own. But in the shadows of rebellion, Thren has become a legend. The rebels view him as a symbol of redemption,
a man who defied his past and changed the course of history. Still, the weight of his actions drags at him. He's a man without a home, walking a galaxy that neither welcomes nor forgives him. His breath is heavy, his mind racing. The mission was a success, but at what cost? The faces of fallen comrades haunt his thoughts. The galaxy is on the edge of war, and his role in the struggle is just beginning. Thren, to himself, no going back now. But what do I do now? The ship that once belonged to the Zunari now belongs to him. With no destination but a fractured path ahead, Thren turns toward the stars, his heart heavy but determined. The galaxy will remember him, no matter what name they give him. Deep in the cold silence of space, something stirs. An ancient pulse, once forgotten, now hums back to life. Across the darkened expanse of the galaxy, a series of dormant stations, once the farthest reaches of humanity's forgotten empire, flicker awake. The awakening. The signal pulse, a beacon sent from Earth's deepest vaults, carries the essence of humanity's survival. For centuries, these outposts, suspended in time, hidden from the galaxy, remain lifeless. But now, in the wake of the rebellion, they ignite. Slowly at first, their dormant systems power up. Dim lights flicker across the silent corridors, where nothing has moved in centuries. The old stagnant metal hums back to life, and humanity's forgotten children wake.
A lone operator, far from Earth, sits in a dim-lit room. His screen flickers, showing the pulse, a pattern of data he thought lost. It's real. They're back. Earth is calling us home. One by one, the sleeper colonies light up. Their once forgotten existence is no longer a mystery. Humanity is not extinct. They never were. They were simply waiting. The truth spreads across the galaxies like wildfire. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was never destroyed. It retreated. The once thought desolate planet had gone silent, but it was never dead. Humanity's home planet has been hidden, evolving in secret. Earth's decision to pull away from galactic affairs was strategic, a defensive measure to heal, to evolve. The remnants of Earth's great machines, now dormant and forgotten, stir once more. Hidden cities rise from beneath the surface, silent warriors from the past, watching and waiting. The people of Earth knew that they could not fight the overwhelming might of the Zunari Empire. Instead, they chose to wait, rebuild, and strategize. The galaxy, in its arrogance, thought Earth was finished, but it was never gone. The truth is simple. Earth has been biding its time, preparing for the day when it could strike again. They've been watching us, waiting, and now we're ready. The sleepers are no longer silent. The protectors are awake. The rebellion has begun. Humanity will rise again. On Zunari Prime, amid the ruins of the final battle, a solitary relic remains, a cracked badge. Its once glistening surface is marred with blood, dirt, and the scars of battle. The badge belonged to Voss, a hero in humanity's forgotten war. But he is gone, his body never found, his legend continuing to burn in the hearts of those who remember him. The symbol of the Earth resistance, the cracked badge, is all that remains. It's a message, a relic left behind. In the emptiness of space, Voss's story is far from over. The badge lies half buried in the stone of Zunari Prime, its surface cracked, yet shining with the memory of a man who is willing to fight to the very end. You weren't alone, Voss. Not anymore. As the badge is lifted from the rubble, its story spreads. Humanity's resistance, once a whisper, now carries the weight of history, and the galaxy trembles. Across the galaxy, scattered cells of rebels gather. They speak of a legend, a man named Voss, a fighter who didn't just take on the Empire, but showed them what it meant to be human. Voss's teachings, his tactics, spread like wildfire. AI traps, guerrilla warfare, psychological tactics, all learned from his rise against the Zunari Empire.
Rebels from different species unite under one banner, the Voss Doctrine. The Empire, once thought invincible, begins to fracture. He showed us how to fight, how to win, and now we fight in his name. The Empire can bleed. The Empire's grip tightens, but now everywhere they look, there are rebels. The doctrine has spread. It's not just humanity's fight anymore. It's a galaxy-wide movement.
The galaxy is vast, but in the deepest, most forgotten corners, there are whispers. The myth lives. He's still out there. They say it in hushed tones, in secret meeting rooms, in back alley spaceports. Some claim they saw him near a dying star, his ship glowing faintly in the dark void. Others speak of a man who became more than flesh, a being whose legend transcended death. The truth is murky, uncertain. But one thing is clear: humanity is no longer hiding. It's not just a myth, it's a call. The galaxy knows that the human spirit is alive, and they know that Earth is far from finished. A voice on the comms. They say Voss is dead, but how can a myth die? How can something that powerful fade? The myth refuses to die, and wherever it spreads, humanity's spirit burns bright, fierce, and unyielding. The fight for freedom has only just begun. The settlement lay nestled beneath the soft glow of twin moons, their light casting silver ripples over the crystal-like grass of the plains. Stars shimmered above in quiet harmony, untouched by war or fear. Here, among stone ring houses and domed observatories, peace had taken root. A circle of alien children, scaled, furred, and smooth-skinned alike, gathered around an old, hunched figure by the firelight. His eyes held the weight of centuries. "No gods in our tales tonight," he rasped with a smile. "Only a man, called Voss, the ghost of Orion." The children leaned in closer, some skeptical, others wide-eyed. The name carried a strange weight, half legend, half warning. He came not with fleets, but with fire in his blood and freedom in his hands. They listened, not because they were told to, but because deep inside they felt it. This was no ordinary story. This was a truth that the stars had not forgotten. The crackle of the fire faded into silence. A small voice broke it. "Was he ever real?" asked a child with skin like polished obsidian and eyes bright with wonder. The elder stared into the flames. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a breath that trembled from the weight of memory, he answered, "Yes, he was real." And he reminded us of something we forgot too long ago. He looked at the children now, really looked. That one human can change everything. The words hung heavy in the air, like prophecy. And somewhere far beyond that settlement, they were heard. Under a different sky, far from the village, far from any map, a quiet green valley stretched beneath unfamiliar constellations. There, alone, among the hills and soft wind, a cloaked figure sat upon a flat stone. No fanfare, no honor guards, just silence and breath. In his hand, a small device pulsed dimly. It flickered like it might fail, yet it endured, part beacon, part memory. It held the weight of names and losses and the fire of something still burning.